Okay, so the next step of this tutorial is to generate normal maps and cavity maps using the plugin ZMapper. So again, with this cliff, we're going to go to our plugins and go to ZMapper and click on ZMapper. And now we're in our ZMapper interface. And if you notice also, we also now have a texture file here. So what I want to do is go through the interface for you of the ZMapper, and it's broken up in column sections. So the first column is just simple tools, so exit, to exit out of ZMapper into back to your ZBrush canvas. Your hide tab is to simply just hide this interface of your ZMapper. And if you also will notice, any letter or any tab that's yellow, that is the shortcut for that particular setting. Then you have a background, which will change the background color from a gray to a black. Okay. You also have a local light. So a great thing about this is if I hold my shift key and my right mouse button, I can move my light forward or backwards. And if I hold shift and left mouse, I can move my light around the scene to have a visibility of my normal mapping or cavity mapping that I'm generating. So we're going to go ahead and turn that off. Opaque will do is, as you see, you'll turn your interface opaque, and then you have a render region just like any other renderer, which we will definitely use during this tutorial. The next settings you have are transform. So you have a simple rotate, so which can rotate. You have scaling, and you also have the move tool. Now I like to just keep this on rotate because this does interact the same way as the canvas of ZBrush itself. So of course Alt will move you, letting go of Alt will zoom you in and out, and it's just more comfortable for me to use that. So in the next column we have a smooth mode and we have a faceted mode. So if you notice, the smooth mode smooths out all your faces, and the faceted shows each face. Then you have a spin option, which will spin your mesh along an axis. So I prefer to keep the spin off. Another great tool, so if I have something like this happens, if I hit recenter, it's going to recenter my mesh back to its original spot. So again, I'm moving around. No worries if you lose it. Go ahead and hit recenter. Your diffuse intensity is just going to be the intensity of the certain color that is on your mesh at the current time, because you can show textures in here. Your next thing you'll have is a Morph Mode. We have your Morph 3D mode and your Morph UV mode. So the Morph 3D mode is good for creating blend shapes in ZMapper. Your Morph UV is going to morph your UVs depending on the speed that you put, how fast it's going to morph out. If I hit freeze target, now I have my UVs spread out to take a look at. And if I speed up my speed and turn this off, and we go back, it's going to move back and forth from your mesh mode to your UV mode. So let's turn that off now. The next thing you have is your wires. You got your poly frame. So here's a poly frame of my mesh. Then you have tangent frames. And then you have a normal mapping as well, where your normals are going. The next thing you have is a screen, so you can do a snapshot. So what's great for this is if I wanted to show my poly frame and then take a snapshot of that and move this over and turn my poly frame off, I now have a snapshot of what my mesh looks like with the poly frame and what it looks like in the smooth mode. I then can save that and put that in the folder that I want to, and save that as a PSD file. So if I want to dispose, I hit dispose and I'm back to just my single mesh again. So it's a great little tool to have. Up here on your slide you have your display, which is going to zoom your display in and out. So I've never found the need to use that again. I just use the interface that ZBrush uses. And here you have what display do you want to look at. Do you want to look at your object space? Do you want to look at your UV seams, where there's your tangent space, which for normal mapping, that's what we're going to use. The groups, so if you had multiple polygroups on this particular mesh, you will see all group colors. Your normals, what direction, how they're working, and then you got your tangents and the texture, which currently we do not have a texture on our mesh. The next thing you have is a save configuration and an open configuration. So if you click on the open configuration, you're going to get all preset settings that have been put together for our ZMapper based on certain applications, 3D Studio Max, and we have Maya, Tangent Space Fast, and Best Quality. So it's definitely something you can just open up. If you also set yourself a setting, you can save your configuration so you can use future meshes. So you notice there's also tabs down here, which we have a normal cavity, projection, expert, and then a miscellaneous tab. I'm going to go through the first tab on this tutorial, which is our normal and cavity mapping tab. So now that we have this open and a normal mapping open, the first thing I'm going to do is here, I just want to generate a normal map to give you an idea of the normal map that you will get from ZMapper and how that works. There's multiple settings that we are going to go through in here that'll definitely get you different results with your normal map. So ZBrush is done, and now on the low poly mesh we have a normal map, and this is what our normal map would look like. And if I was to exit right now, that normal map would go in applied to our texture file right there. Okay, so for your settings is if we need to flip the image vertically, we can flip the image vertically, flip our red and green channel. Then you have an RGB sharpness or blur. We have a seam over paint. We have samples and subdivide. So the higher you put these, the longer it's going to take to generate your normal map. I've not really found a need ever to adjust these two settings. You have interpolate and you have ray tracing. Interpolate is great for hard edge items. In most cases, ray tracing will be the setting you will have on most of the time. And then your smooth normals. Okay, what we also have are inflate higher mesh and sharpen higher mesh. So taking a look, going back to our render region here, let's zoom in a little bit on our cliff. So I want to play with this part of my cliff. I'm not happy with the detail I got here. So if I go to my render region and let's drag out my region here, and I tell it I want to go ahead and inflate my mesh all the way, and then go ahead and create a normal map. As you see, is it's only rendering out that part of a normal map, but you see what happens is it inflates it so much that I lost some detail. Now what if I go and I want to sharpen my detail, so all the way. So now if I generate a normal map with my sharpen detail up all the way, you'll see what happens. It definitely sharpens up those edges. And if I go in a negative of my sharpen and create my normal map, I'm actually going to lose some of my detail, as you see, and that's gone now. So there's definitely some setting playing here you can do for certain parts of your map. So I definitely think I want to add some inflate here and then some sharpness and create that part of my normal map, so I can drag more of my detail out. And then go ahead and in here we'll add a little more detail, get a little more sharpness out here, and generate that normal map. So it's a really handy tool. I can do certain sections of my normal mapping with that render region and having those multiple settings that I have right there. So now that I have a normal map, I can now exit my ZMapper, and now my normal map is now applied to my texture palette, which then I can now export and call this my normal map. Now you see you have the option of saving as a PSD, a bitmap, or a TIFF. We're going to need to save that as a TIFF for Maya to read the normal map. And we're going to go ahead and click save. Now the one thing that keep in mind for the purpose of Maya, we did not flip this. So this will have to be put into Photoshop and be flipped. Now if you don't want that capability and have to go through that extra step, again you would just go here with your flip image vertically, and now when you exit you're going to have a flipped image for in your texture palette for the purpose of Maya. You could also go right here to your texture in your texture palette and also just tell it to flip vertically, and now we have a vertically flipped image that we can also export and save this again as our normal map with the image being flipped. So there's a simple steps of doing your normal mapping with our ZMapper.